content makes a difference in life or death for people. It affects the way that people take care of themselves, take care of their families, make decisions about when and how to seek care. So the content that we produce carries a lot of weight. We're one of the most respected brands in the business.
Hey everybody, welcome into another episode of Radical Content. I'm Eric Gray, and joining me today is my friend, a colleague, someone I've been able to talk with, someone I've been able to learn from for a long time, Amanda Todorovich. Hopefully I said that right. We had some training before it got started. Amanda, how are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Last time we talked, I was working at Universal Parks. I was back in corporate. Now we're doing this whole new thing. And, back then our conversation was really about kind of building a team. And today I'm excited to kind of really dive into, yes, what you guys have built at Cleveland Clinic, but also just kind of how you think about content. You've been doing this for a long time. So a little bit of setup. I'll do a little setup and then I want you to do your own.
Okay.
But I kind of think of Amanda as like the queen of content marketing. She's always on stage at Content Marketing World, or at least it seems like it. I got to see you live one time there, and they're always really good. I was reviewing some stuff before we got into this, and I got to watch a few of your keynotes. I got to listen to a few podcasts. But for those of us that don't know Cleveland Clinic and don't know the content engine, the internal media company that you guys have built, help tell the listener a little bit about the engine that you've created, the people, the traffic to the website, the growth over the years. There's so much, because I want people, as they're getting into this, to have the context of what you've grown to, because I think everything else will make a lot more sense.
Sure, absolutely. So I've been at the Cleveland Clinic now 11 years, and it has been a tremendous journey for sure. So I was originally hired in to manage a team of 3 people. Content marketing was not even really a thing yet. It was more like, hey, we have this blog, let's kind of try to do something with it. And we have social media, but no real plan or strategy. We plucked some people from some other jobs to sort of help with it. And so, at that time, lots of new things. People really didn't know what we were doing. I came in and sort of transformed our strategy, the approach to it, really started focusing more on what does our audience actually need. Cleveland Clinic is a global health system. So lots of people don't realize that we're not just an Ohio hospital. We have facilities all over the world, and our brand is one of the biggest and best in healthcare. And our digital strategy needs to reflect that. Our presence needs to reflect that. And so we've grown tremendously. Now my team is well over 100 people. We are responsible for...
Every time I listen to a podcast, the number has grown. I think the one I listened to is like 85, and now I hear 100, and I'm like shaking my head, and people are listening are going, oh, to have those kind of resources. But keep going. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, but with those resources come a ton of expectations and responsibility.
Oh, I believe it.
So today, content marketing is part of it, but it's also really an integrated team approaching digital marketing comprehensively in a way that's very audience-centric, capitalizing on all the lessons we've learned over the last 10 years about what consumers really want from us and how this can actually build our brand, benefit our bottom line, and really truly serve the world with health information. Yeah. So it's a lot. The team is big, but it's also includes a lot of scope. Yeah. So I would just caution too, I don't have 100 people just doing content marketing. My responsibilities and the scope of the work have drastically changed.
Yeah, totally get it. So one of the things I looked at when I was doing some research was you did a talk at Content Marketing World, I think in 2018, and you took a different approach. It was about the power and the responsibility. I don't know if you remember this talk.
I do.
But you told a story about a woman, and we are storytellers. And in that moment, you told this wonderful story. And the thing it reminded me of is that there's people on the other side of the content we're creating. And so I wanted to start there a little bit, especially, I worked at theme parks. And so the people on the other side of the content for us was families, kids getting excited to come on vacation, which, is awesome. And it was a wonderful thing. Other people are working for apparel or financial tech, or other different verticals that exist. Working in healthcare, you described the responsibility that you guys have, and really brought people inside the audience a little bit. Now, I didn't tell you to kind of have that keynote planned. But I'd love for you to kind of talk a little bit about, in summary, the importance and the responsibility that comes as a content marketer in healthcare, and just the importance to understand the unique humans and the stories that exist on the other side of all this content we're trying to create.
Yeah, I think healthcare is a special industry, and it's definitely where my heart is. And a big part of the reason for that is because content makes a difference in life or death for people. It affects the way that people take care of themselves, take care of their families, make decisions about when and how to seek care. So the content that we produce carries a lot of weight. We're one of the most respected brands in the business. So we have to really think about the person on the other end of that content is someone who's scared, someone who's trying to navigate a world they don't really want to be in. Nobody wants to need to engage with a hospital, and it's also a bit of how to recover from something, how to prevent something, how to make something better that you're suffering with. It's just, I can't even describe it. It's just such an emotional business to be in. And I think that we do a really good job of being very human in our approach to the content and understanding the emotion that comes with it and trying to do everything that we can to really make sure that we're factoring in all the questions, all the fears, all the things that are on people's minds when they turn to us. And it's not about the volume of surgeries, right? Because that's where the ROI is. For us, it's very much about all the other things too that show people that we care about you all the time, whether you're sick or not. The industry as a whole, I think, doesn't do a great job of that. I think we tend to focus a lot on treatments and a lot on clinical procedures that, cancer and heart and neuro, but the everyday care is just as important. And I think that, we have a responsibility to really help people navigate all of these different complexities. And we're the experts. We're the ones who can provide that. No one else can do that. So I think it goes beyond marketing. It goes really, truly to the heart and soul of who we are as an organization and who we are as an industry.
Yeah, you talk about the heart, and I think about purpose. But just to kind of go back to that for a second, and for anyone listening at home, you've done this, right? You've had a symptom, and you've got online, and you've Googled it, and got the information you thought you needed just to kind of appease that kind of momentary fear. My kids are now 10 and 8, and luckily pretty healthy. Although Harrison is at home today with a little cough, but we had a friend, her name's Amber. We called her Dr. Amber, and we could text her anytime. We could send photos of things anytime. And she would kind of get back to us and kind of just give us an idea. It would give us a peace of mind. Relax, it's probably this, or come, bring him to the office tomorrow. And I've literally thought to myself, imagine if everybody had a Dr. Amber. Not everybody has a Dr. Amber. And this sounds humorous. It's not intended to, but they do have Dr. Google. Or now I guess Dr. ChatGPT, which, who knows what that consists of. But y'all are the ones that are really on the other side of that. We're saying Google, but it's Cleveland Clinic. And it's a lot of Cleveland clinics that exist out there, but you guys are doing it at such a massive scale and reaching such a mass volume. How do you keep the mission top of mind for a team of 100? You're out there creating podcasts, you're out there creating articles, and you're trying to keep, Harrison, for instance, or Julie, or Michelle, or Amanda, or Eric in mind as they're out there creating. How do you find a way to take content people that sole goal is to engage, connect, and to, create some sort of value exchange for them so they know, like, and trust your hospital? How do you keep that top of mind for your team and maybe even for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's gotten harder as we've gotten bigger, not just in terms of the size of the team, but also the size of the reach. So I know I didn't quite touch on it before, but in 2023, we had over 1 billion sessions to clevelandclinic.org. Yeah, it's explosive growth. And about 90% of our traffic comes from organic Google search. So it's quite...
Did everybody hear that? 90% came from organic growth. All right, I'm going to let you keep going.
Yeah. So organic Google search, and the fact that behind every one of those is a person looking for answers, is something we talk about a great deal. Monthly search volume, the way people are searching, the questions they're asking drive our entire strategy. It is what we literally talk about every day. making sure that we cover the things people need. And so, I think it comes naturally to us because our approach is literally so audience focused and so driven by what those people are looking for. It is
Mhm.
not about what internal stakeholders ask us to write.
Right.
And I think that that is a fundamental reason we've been so successful, because we do really truly focus on what people need,
Yeah.
and what they're looking for, and finding gaps and finding opportunities to be more comprehensive. And is this article answering everything? What are we missing? How can we continuously make it better? And it's not just about the ranking. It's really about honestly, truly wanting to have the very best content on the internet on a topic, period.
Yeah. You know what's funny? I just had this weird, like, y'all are like the Mr. Beast of content marketing, and I say that as a tremendous compliment. You found, this vertical is so rich. If you're driving 90% of search traffic, there's definitely a lot of great stuff you're doing, but there's also a lot of market need that you're writing. Right? There's a lot of people that are out there and just need it, and you guys have found ways to kind of show up and to kind of continue to build trust over a long period of time. How do you create an audience? Marketers can get so hung up on audience in a good way, but sometimes in a bad way, right? It's got to be hyper specific. We got to have demographics and psychographics. How do we kind of have a full picture of this audience? But you guys are serving every age, from young to old, all sorts of different life standpoints, all sorts of different socioeconomic individuals and family groups. How do y'all find a way to navigate audience? Do you create, a handful of personas? Do you have 6 or 7 that represent the 80%? And I can't imagine in what world you would be able to document and kind of hold a team accountable to some sort of audience strategy.
Yeah, it's evolved over the years. When I first got here, we definitely had more defined personas, particularly for the blog, because we were really trying to reshape the approach and understand and identify who was looking for this information. For a healthcare system, it's incredibly hard, right? Because nobody wants to follow a hospital. Nobody wants to need a hospital in their life every day, right? So engaging with content with us in terms of subscribers or routine engaging with the brand is much more complicated. We're more
Mm-hmm.
in the moment, right? When you're sick or when you need something. And so it's a bit of a balance. When you look at our strategy around social media audiences, for example, it's a bit different because again, we want to be relevant in your everyday life. So the type of content we post there is very much about your everyday decision making, what to eat. So lots of food and nutrition and recipe content and lots of lifestyle things, less clinical. But then when we talk about the SEO strategy and the fact that we know billions of people, literally 1 in every 5 searches on Google is health related, they're looking for those more serious diagnoses and then comprehensiveness on, very different things. And so it's not one size fits all. It's the persona work is there, but they're very broad because, like you said, we're trying to serve everybody. It's
Mm-hmm.
not a particular demographic or sociographic anything. It's literally more so, are we truly being comprehensive in the
Yeah.
health information space? So audience strategy is a little different for us. We've evolved it. We've had different names, different personas, different, situations we've worked on.
Different PowerPoint decks have been built.
It comes more into play when we're also talking about any kind of amplification or paid strategies, like
Totally.
who really are we talking about? And more of that targeting comes into things like care seekers versus information seekers. And those are 2 different things to us, right? The vast majority of content my team is producing is very much for the information seeker. But then there's a whole nother parallel stream of work for us that's very much about the care and talking about why you should come to us and how we can help you. So those are sort of 2 different things. And the persona type of those is a little different too.
Yeah. So I know you've been doing this for 11 years. You've been there about as long as I was at Universal, which is cool. You've just done some amazing things with a great team. What has been able to contribute to the sustained success? I think a lot of content marketing programs come and go, right? Some people that have been in the industry for different places, and maybe they've moved jobs, but a lot of times they've been in the same place. And one leader comes in and wants to invest in it. The other one's like, no, this isn't really where we are. You guys have continued to invest in it. You continued to grow it. What has created that continued success with Cleveland Clinic when it comes to content marketing?
So there's 2 things I think that really are the biggest driver. One is continuous communication about our work to a lot of different stakeholders across the enterprise. So for as long as I can remember, I've been sending out weekly update emails that are like just kind of high level. Hey, this happened this week and it was a big win, or we tried this experiment thing and here's what happened. Lots of informal communication in between as well.
Sure.
But routine, regular updates on what we've been doing and building and growing along the way. I would say the other thing that's important to know about what we do is that we actually do monetize our content marketing efforts. So there's advertising running on parts of our website that does generate significant revenue now. And so that's helped offset expense and let us continue to invest in resources to grow it. We operate a lot like a mini media company within the organization versus a traditional marketing department.
That's the dream.
Yeah. So it does change things, right? In terms of scope and scale of resources.
Man, there's a few different places I want to go, but I'm gonna with that answer, but I'm gonna stick here for just a second. Well, let me make one comment actually. The weekly updates I think is interesting because I think people that live in a director of social role or a head of content marketing role, there's a little bit of you don't understand what we do. Let me just do my thing, right?
Doing
and that
formal reports, like I don't wait for like some monthly or quarterly report, like. It's just little bits of information. And what it's done is build a rapport for our team to have this reputation of continued success.
Yeah. And that's what I tell people. I'm like, the best thing you can do ever is to push into that uncomfortability of letting people inside of your walls and telling what you're doing, because that's going to be what is going to create credibility, right? Even if the numbers aren't even where you want them to be, the fact that you're sharing them and you're one of the ones that are proactively. So I think that's a really good note that sometimes one of the first things I did at Universal when I took over the job of social media, I did a monthly like internal newsletter about social media. I was like, I need to just educate the entire organization about the power of social media, regardless of what we were doing. In that moment, it positioned me and my team as leaders, as innovators with credibility, and it gave them the ability to want to invest and to want to help us build. And so I love hearing stories like that. So here's my quick summary of content marketing, the idea of content marketing. Very fast. I'm sure you've got your own. Actually, I think you did your definition of it the last time I was at Content Marketing World. So you definitely have your own. But what I like to say, and you know, I was previously in radio. My job in radio is to keep people entertained from 3 to 6 so they come back the next day. I didn't realize that was actually content marketing back then until I got into marketing. So I describe content marketing as we're going to create valuable content that you need in your daily lives that builds trust over time, and that trust will then help us build an audience. And then once you build that audience from a commerce standpoint, you can leverage that for many different ways, whether it be advertising or selling products or sponsorships or a lot of different things. But value is core to it. So a lot of times it's about mid-funnel. A lot of times it's about that loyalty loop. And it 100% is. But I've been on this kind of bully pulpit for a while now that engagement is as important to the top of the funnel as it is to anything else. And what I mean by that is building your brand. So I want to ask you, you're probably seeing where I'm kind of setting this up. How has content marketing not just contributed to that mid-funnel and helping people once they have a need, but has created and contributed in a positive way to elevating the overall brand and the overall brand trust when it comes to the Cleveland Clinic?
It is the fundamental success metric for us. It isn't about patient volume. It truly, our work is very, very much about building the brand, because the reach and the approach to our content strategy, like I said, is to reach anybody everywhere in the world that needs health information. And that's very top of funnel. We measure and track brand awareness pretty sophisticately.
Sure.
And we know that what we're doing is making a huge difference. That volume of traffic that we're getting is like Ohio, where our main campus is like nowhere near the top of the list in terms of where that traffic is coming from. It is very, very broad. It's like 35% is international. We are showing up in people's search results in ways we never dreamed possible a few years ago. And it is truly making a huge difference. We also, because of the work we're doing, get a lot of our content now included in media mentions, because reporters search for definitions and they find us at the top of the list. And that's helping. So the combination, I would say, of owned and earned and what it all sort of does together has is truly the number one driver of new brand awareness for us. And it has been for many, many quarters consecutively. The digital sources, the way people find us online, are absolutely driving more brand awareness than anything else we do.
So in your 11 years, you guys are seeing tremendous growth. You got over 1 billion sessions. You got people mention you in media. You've got quite a content engine that's created. And so inside your four walls, I'm sure that's like we're the stuff, right? Like it's success, and people around here know it's success. But a lot of people don't exist in that world. They're in those stages earlier on where they're trying to convince. And other than showing the reporting and analytics, because that's definitely a part of it. I'm not going to ask you how. I'm more going to ask you why. Why are legacy marketers and more traditional marketers still kind of seeing things like content marketing or engagement marketing or loyalty marketing as optional? And I don't know if you could step your brain outside of where you guys are to kind of set in the seat of someone else. But why do you think that this thing that you're doing, and I know you're much broader than just content marketing today and much more integrated, but content marketing has a major seat at the table for you guys. Why do these more kind of legacy traditional marketers kind of see this stuff as the optional side part of work rather than the thing that actually can drive brand, can drive growth, and can drive future?
I think the biggest thing is because most executives really understand the bottom line more than anything else, right? And demand gen and really the sales part of it. And tactics like content marketing are a long game. And a lot of times you're not able to directly attribute a sale to something that you're doing. So I think sometimes it gets overlooked because that measurement isn't necessarily a big part of the discussion. For us, brand awareness is a critical measure. If brand awareness is not a critical measure to your marketing organization, then things that make that kind of impact are going to be lower on the list. I think people struggle too based on your industry, right? In healthcare in particular, we can't create demand. You're either sick or you're not. You need surgery or you don't. It's impossible. So it's a bit different, right? We need people to know who we are so they choose us when it counts. But for a lot of other traditional marketing organizations, it really is about pushing the widgets, right? And that's a very different place to be in. And I think content marketing tends to struggle in industries where it's so much more about sales volume than it is about a brand.
Yeah. So there's a strategy side of what you do, a major strategy, right? There's an operational side, big operational side. I'm sure you've got tons of different platforms and project managers and people that are kind of helping things be delivered on time. But I want to kind of dive into the creative side because I know kind of your heart and your history exists in there, although you're a pro digital and tech person probably now as well. But let's go into the creative side of things for a second and talk to me about your creative process with your content. Maybe even about kind of idea generation. I do have a favorite. You have a podcast called Butts and Guts, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about Butts and Guts. How did it get started? Where did the idea come from? Are these things more kind of free-flowing ideas that kind of can spark any way? Do you have a process? Tell me about kind of the creative process around how Butts and Guts, just like saying that, got started.
Butts and Guts is an interesting one because it actually came to us as an existing podcast with one of our physicians. Dr. Scott Steele had been doing Butts and Guts on his own and then ultimately came to marketing for support and help and kind of kicking it up a notch and taking it to the next level. And that's ultimately what's happened. It's one of our top performing podcasts. But that was his idea.
Because it has a great name.
It is, but it was his name. I mean, he's a digestive disease surgeon and he's fantastic and super creative, and actually was one of our keynotes at the Content Marketing World Health Summit one year because he's such a great engaged partner with us. But that's his show. He hosts that show. We partner with him on topics and give him suggestions and try to optimize performance. But for us, the process is all over the place. It kind of just depends on the format and what we're talking about. If it's, a podcast or a video, that's generally something that's coming from multiple parts of the organization with ideas, or like, hey, I saw this thing on TikTok. Could we do our own version of that? Ideas come from everywhere. Whereas things like health library articles, which are long form comprehensiveness, that is really a lot coming from our SEO strategy and identifying gaps through data analysis of monthly search volumes and rankings and things like that. And then the team sort of, tackles topics based on that. But then, there's in the moment things that happen every day. We operate a lot like a newsroom. So there's
Mm-hmm.
a whole series of daily tiered huddles where we're talking about what's going on right now. Do we have content on this? Do we need content on this? What are we doing next? I also push the team constantly to be experimenting, and we talk a lot about experimentation plans and what are we testing right now and what are we learning from that and what are we building on. So the creative process is a lot of iteration and optimization. Brand new net ideas, like I said, come from anywhere and everywhere, and we welcome them from all over the organization.
Yeah.
Our physicians especially are interacting with the patients every day, so ideas come to them in their practices that we want to hear about. So it's really an entire enterprise effort.
Yeah. So obviously I'm excited about Butts and Guts. What is something that you're most excited about? What's a current content project, or maybe one that it's semi-recent, and kind of take us inside that example a little bit, little mini case study, if we will.
This is hard. There's a lot.
Well, you have a big team producing a lot.
Yeah, we do, in a lot of different formats. I think
we can give the disclaimer to your team that she's not picking favorites. She likes all of her babies the same, but I'm forcing her to choose one.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that it's one particular piece of content as much as it is our approach to testing and looking at new ideas with tools in the AI space. And so that's got me the most excited, because I think it can honestly like transform a lot of our processes and make us more efficient and make us more creative and push the bounds of what we're doing. So we have a series of pilot projects we're running. We have multiple tools that we're testing and benchmarking, and really trying to figure out what's worth large scale investments for the whole team, what tools and technologies are going to make a difference or not, and not just jumping at a tool, but really taking a problem-based approach to it and identifying where we have pain points in our process, where are we doing repetitive tasks, where do we have opportunities to jump in. So there's a whole team of people really dedicated to figuring out each of these pilots. I have an AI ops manager on my team now helping facilitate and coordinate all of that work. So I'm most excited about where that's going to take us and what the future looks like in terms of iterating our entire infrastructure.
Yeah, I mean, when you have the engine that you have, I imagine there's a lot of legwork that goes on. The other thing I think is cool about that is a group that is, was probably born a bit more out of the written word, right? The article and blog mindset, right? And now kind of moving into podcast and rich media like video, webinars and things like that. I could see a group like yours, being like, oh, AI, like it's kind of the narrative, right? Are they stealing jobs? And you guys are like, no, that's not what we're worried about. We want to figure out how we can leverage it to help us do what we do better, quicker, faster, stronger.
Yep.
And I love that.
Bigger, better, bolder. Let's go.
Yeah, I love that. How does a hospital have tone and personality? You use the word clinical when it comes to some of the articles that you're doing, but you definitely, have a ton of content that's going out the door. How do you find a way to create a personality and a tone that is unique, that's differentiated? And is this something you feel like you've locked and you guys are rocking, or do you feel like there's opportunity and growth still there?
I feel like this is something we've absolutely locked. And it's been a huge focus of ours for the last probably 2 to 3 years, really making our content human and approachable and much more empathetic than ever before. I mentioned earlier, really wanting to take into account how people are feeling when they read an article. So we want our content to very much feel like you're talking to your friend about your health and you're getting answers in a way you can understand them. We write to a 6th grade reading level, and we really try very much to make it.
How do you test that? Like, how do you make that happen? Like, I know you say that, but how do you do it?
Yeah, it's a complete commitment. And the way that our process works with our editorial staff, really having a firm commitment, helping draft and define our editorial style, really working together and doing things like sensitivity reads of articles, working on including inclusive language and evolving our standards around those things. It's a passion of the entire team, and it's something everyone feels really, really engaged with.
Yeah, that's so cool. You talked about Butts and Guts. That came to you guys from a doctor. And I've also heard in interviews you talk about that everything that you do that's clinical in nature, which is most of it, is reviewed by someone on a medical staff. Tell us how that works. Like, that sounds like just a difficult process in and of itself. But I mean, obviously, you've got to be committed to it. You have to, but from a medical standpoint. So tell us about that process and creating that connection with the medical staff to support the content side.
It's the hardest part. Physicians are busy taking care of patients, but we don't publish a single thing without a medical review. And so they're an integral part of it. We know that things take time, so we work pretty far out and build all of that in. We partner with a lot of different aspects of the organization to help us identify the right sources for articles. We try to really make sure that the content is truly buttoned up before we're sending it, right? Like, we're only asking them for a medical review. We're not asking them to rewrite or edit, the article. We just want to make sure it's medically accurate. So we try to be really clear about that. We're constantly working on ways to improve this process. It's really challenging, just given the volume of content we're producing and how many different types of things we're asking them for. So really trying to spread the asks across the entire enterprise. It takes an immense amount of people to help us get where we need to be. And it's also constantly communicating to all of the different areas why. What's the strategy? How does this benefit the organization? Letting them know that their time on this content is worth it. Sharing back with them the numbers, like, this article has reached this many people, or now it's ranking in the number 1 spot, or thank you so much, you helped this many people get the answers they need. And so there's lots and lots and lots and lots of communication. We have an entirely dedicated project management team whose sole job it is to work these things through that process.
It sounds like a lot. When I was at Universal, we didn't own anything, right? We were kind of licensed a lot of our property. So anything we had to do on social had to go to a licensed partner and back. And so we had systems built, probably maybe not to the scale of which, and definitely not with the risk that is up for grabs when it comes to the medical side of things. But that always felt so limiting. And you always kind of dreamed, like, what if we could just create something and go? But it's the pathway that we choose, kind of working there, and obviously the same thing for you guys. So you talked a little bit about social media earlier. So let's break that open a little bit. That's kind of my history when it wasn't radio. It was a long time kind of dedicated in social media, and social's changed, right? It feels like it's all video now. And I want to talk to you about video, but just kind of tackle social for me for a second. How has social media changed for you and for Cleveland Clinic, and how are you guys tackling it differently today than, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago?
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's definitely a totally different game today. Back in the day, it was Facebook and Twitter, and that was about it. And actually, my first year here, like 80% of our site traffic was coming, or to the blog, 80% of the traffic to the blog was coming from Facebook alone, which seems ridiculous now. But yeah, I mean, it's completely evolved. The team is much larger. I had a person before, and now we have like 5 or 6 of them. We're managing many, many more channels. Really, like you said, video is key. TikTok is a vital part of our strategy today, which seems kind of crazy for a hospital, but it actually is making a big difference. Really short form video has become, instrumental in many, many platforms. We also have expanded, the amount of accounts and different things that we've spun off for, like, our children's brand, for example, things that we're doing in the medical professional space.
What's the children's brand? I got to check this out.
Yeah, we have Cleveland Clinic Children's.
Okay.
Really trying to talk to parents in a different way than we speak to the entire enterprise.
Yeah.
But then we also have Cleveland Clinic MD, which is for medical professionals, physician to physician types of things. So it's a lot. It's grown, expanded, and it's shifted a little bit away from what used to be kind of exclusively focused on traffic driving to a lot more really just trying to keep people engaged with us and our brand.
Yeah. I love that. And I think that's where a lot of people are trying to understand the value of it, right? And trying to kind of get to that point. So let's talk about video. I've seen some like micro, like vertical clips that have a little personality. They're both from doctors. I've seen some kind of stacked, even like little interview, almost podcast style, kind of like you and I are doing right now with some text down below. One of the I'll say this and then I'll kind of introduce it as a question. One of the things I love about social today is whether it be AI or new platforms, I love trying to find ways to create content faster, but yet just as polished, right? We've got these like little creator kits. I'm actually looking at one of them. It's got a rig for an iPhone. It's got a little light. And what we can produce kind of run and gun style is just so much different. And it'll take that into CapCut on your phone and be able to pull something together. And I'm not saying that everything operates that way, because a lot of things have to run through project management softwares and publishing softwares. But I love the way we can create more and new and different ways that are just so much different than a brief goes to a designer, goes into Photoshop, and then a few weeks later we see a first round. Like, and I'm not saying that goes away; it still exists today. How are you guys finding a way to be nimble and scrappy when it comes to content creation for social?
Yeah, there's very few things that actually go through the process you're describing, where we're writing a brief or asking.
Oh, I love it.
Very.
Are you hiring? That sounds amazing.
Yeah, and when we do, it's usually because it's like part of some larger campaign or initiative that's beyond social media, and we want the cohesiveness. But for the most part, we try to be as nimble as we can be. We've had long-standing guardrails that we worked on with our legal team and our compliance team and everyone else to kind of know where we can play, and we stay within those. We don't have to get our content for social vetted much. We handle it the same way we handle article publishing and things like that. So we make sure that we have medical review, and if the physician who's in the video or whatever approves the script or approves the video at the end and things like that. But we try to be really creative and fun with social. The team is truly empowered to test and play all day. And again, other than the physicians involved in the content itself, that's it. We're not trying to jump through a million hurdles to get a post done, which is really refreshing, exciting, and I think a big part of why we're successful.
Yeah, I love that. So one of the things I like to talk to people about, and it's different for you guys, but there's still a question in here, which is there's so much creator content that exists out there today, right? And there's tons of medical creator content that exists out there today. And then there's those are kind of like kind of down lo-fi, but then there's still kind of some hi-fi, but almost what's the right word? It's not niche, but people like Andrew Huberman, right? Who's out there, giant, super popular podcast, very authentic, kind of a burly guy, kind of delivering facts and figures in a way that kind of relates to people in kind of an authentic way. How do you guys look at these kind of new way people are creating content in medical and say, wow, that's different than what we're doing. We're doing it like X, and we've had some success doing it like X, but that's pretty refreshing. We should try something like that out. What does that look like when you've kind of got your eyes out there on other medical content, whether it be creator focused, YouTube focused, or even just like really, almost turned into like celebrity doctors that are kind of creating their own little media company?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's easy to get distracted by some of that too. So we're very cautious and careful about new approaches. It has to still stay true to the brand, because at the end of the day, we are focused on being a trusted, credible medical resource. And there's a lot of content out there that's created by individuals who actually have zero medical credibility, or they're reaching beyond the scope of their expertise.
Totally.
And that's a scary place. So we take the responsibility of providing accurate, evidence-based medical information very seriously. So we try to stay true to that. And anything that we do, whether it's an experiment in a format or playing with something different, it's always through that lens and very careful. And, we don't just jump on something because it's a trend. We only will jump on a trend if it truly is going to impact our ability to actually get content in front of someone, or we actually have something really important to say about it. And we got to stay within the bounds of true healthcare and medical information. We don't really want to stray too far from that. And again, the team always has ideas and different things that sometimes we'll question and talk through. But, at the end of the day, it's always filtered through that. And if we see something interesting, we're usually inspired by it, but we'll then apply sort of the Cleveland Clinic way of doing it. And so, that's a bit of just knowing our own style and standards.
That's not the answer I was expecting, but I loved it nonetheless, right? Because what you're trying, what you're saying, just to kind of summarize, is we know who we are. We know that content exists out there, and for the stuff that we feel like is creative and inspirational and something we should be considering, we're bringing it in, we're discussing it, and we're trying to figure out a way to kind of do something, but it's still going to be done in the Cleveland Clinic way.
Right.
Yet there's so many people out there that are working for brands that they don't know the Cleveland Clinic way for them. And that is an area that's dangerous, right? So understanding your brand, your purpose, your mission, long before you get down into innovation is really important, or you can just go off and chase squirrels all day long. So I love that. I love that. This is a question I always like to ask. You've been doing this for a little bit, and you have had different opinions along the years. What's something you believed strongly that you've kind of changed your tune on? I've got a ton of these, and some of them are embarrassing. But what is something that you once thought was like, this is gospel, this is this way, and I believe it, my team believes it, we're doing it, and that's completely flipped around?
I don't have a ton of these because
Amanda,
I don't know. This is a tough one. I think a lot of it.
I stumped Amanda.
Yeah, I mean because our core strategy hasn't changed a lot. So I think it's more the things that come to mind are more around, sort of the channels that have come and gone, or
tactical stuff that's changed. Yeah,
like things that have changed. Like remember Google Hangouts, right? Like weird things like that have evolved that you thought would stick around. I would say too, like voice for a while, I thought was going to be a much bigger deal to us than I think it ended up being. We spent a lot of time doing stuff in that space, which was good. We learned a lot, but definitely.
You don't mean tone and voice. You mean actually like an Alexa type activation voice.
Yeah, because we did Alexa, we did a Google Assistant, saying we tried all those, but the numbers just really didn't prove out to be what we thought. So to me, that question, those are the types of things that come to mind, are just more things we've done that then went away that you thought would be a bigger deal.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good answer, even though it took a minute to get there. We got there. So this is an interesting thought. One of the things that content does is it's a big, important trust creator from external communications. But you guys have, I'm sure the number has changed, but at one point you said over 70,000 employees worldwide, but I'm sure it's gone up. You guys have tens of thousands of employees that wear a Cleveland Clinic logo or mark somewhere on, and some of them are probably giant brand fans. Some of them are probably maybe not quite as much. But how has the content side of what you guys have done to build that trust and attractiveness to the brand impacted kind of creating brand champions internally? Yeah,
I think as we've started to do more and show up more in search and be present in more spaces, I definitely think that it's helped people internally see us and feel proud of the work that we do. I used to get a lot of emails like, hey, why don't we show up for this? I searched for this. Or they would complain that we weren't talking about enough things or their particular passion issue, right? I don't get those anymore because we really have done a great job of closing gaps and identifying where we needed to fill things. And I think the more channels we're on, the more content we're providing, people just share that, feel proud of it. And now I get a lot of communication that's like, wow, we're there now. I see us. And that's amazing.
Yeah. I love that. So where do you need to go next? You talked about voice was one that y'all tested out and walked away from. You definitely talked about the importance of kind of AI when it comes to helping you kind of internal move faster, be stronger, be smarter. But are there, you're on social, you got podcasts, your blogs are all over the place. You're driving 1 billion people a year to your site. Obviously you got to find a way to kind of keep that edge and know what's coming up. But what is the thing that you're like, this we haven't just solved yet, and we want to push into this more and kind of figure this out for Cleveland Clinic and for our audiences?
Yeah, AI is a big part of that. Like I said, I think just really trying to figure out how to keep moving and innovating and evolving our practices and efficiencies around the resources we need to do all the things that we do. But then, I would also say a lot of the focus actually isn't on the content stuff that we've been traditionally doing. That's like a well-oiled machine now. We do so much of it. But what I'm really focused on is ultimately then how do we take those people who are on our website engaging with all of this content and give them a great experience if they actually choose us for care. So there's a lot of focus for us on improving our overall experience and our tools and our chatbot and our scheduling capabilities, and kind of just really giving a visitor. I want our entire website to be best in class, not just our content marketing. And so it's bringing all of those things together. We launched a whole new initiative in 2021, really around what we call care pages. So a whole nother part of our website that's really talking about why us and what's great about us, and really coming at it from an enterprise point of view. So there's a lot of work being done to really just bring it all together and cover that entire user journey end to end, and making sure that we have a top-notch experience no matter what part you're coming into or what you're trying to do on the site.
You bring that up, and it makes me ask one more question about kind of it's kind of about analysis, but it's deciding what to do, right? And what not to do, right? And I mean it from a little bit of a audience and content, point of view, right?
Yep.
You look at something and you're like, we tried this, it didn't work, we're out with voice, so we're not going to continue to do it in the same way. What do you see? And I know there's a big SEO team that's coming up and looking for gaps, and they find this gap and they're like, man, there is a ton of parents that are looking for content around X. What are some of the ways that you analyze either own data or third-party data that actually contributes to your editorial calendar downstream?
Yeah, so a lot of SEO, because like I said, 90% of site traffic is organic search.
Totally.
And with AI and generative AI search and things like that, it's evolving a lot. But, it's kind of, that's biggest driver, first and foremost. Second thing is also then the news and what's going on and what is being talked about in healthcare today, what people might be worrying about, what's top of mind. And then kind of third is things that we hear about from the organization bubbling up. Like, this is an issue, or we're seeing a rise in these types of cases, or we're, struggling in this area or that area with communicating certain things, or instructions are getting lost. Like, those things come into play. What we do not do, and I've heard horror stories from so many of my peers, we don't have a ticketing system. Nobody's like submitting content ideas to us through some crazy thing like that. No, it's very audience driven. And again, first and foremost, it's the SEO data, but we also factor in social media data and engagement, anything, we're seeing in our e-newsletters, anything going on with video performance. If a TikTok's gone viral, then let's really look at what we're doing with that type of story in other formats on other places. It's very agile. We don't have an editorial calendar that's mapped out for months for a multitude of reasons. One is we want to be nimble, but two is we have to also get everything reviewed like we talked about. So we are at the mercy of when those things come back. So a lot of stuff we do is evergreen. It's just the topics have come up, and we'll think about seasonal trends. We go back and look at what performed well last March. Well, okay, those are things we might want to look at for this March, or we might want to expand upon or do something different with. So there's lots of things we've been logging and tracking for decades. We know all those kinds of trends and behaviors across the industry on our own site, lots of data points. Every single aspect of my team, which is a lot of different functions, are all talking the same way. How do we beat yesterday? And looking at their own microdata of what happened on their channels and the platforms they're responsible for and the content they're producing, and just finding those ways to iterate.
Yeah. I love that. All right. So some quick lightning round to kind of close us out. Where do you go to for inspiration? When I was at Universal, we used to look at what way back in the day David Beebe was doing over at Marriott, and he built an amazing engine there. Where do you look at for, whether it be in the probably not in the hospital vertical? I think you're probably crushing it when it comes to content. But where are the groups that you're looking at being like, that's different, that's new?
Yeah, a lot of times it's definitely not other hospitals, because I don't think there's many, maybe one that does similar things. It's a lot from the publishing industry and the media industry.
That's the way of saying we've won that battle already.
Yeah, so it's a lot more from the media side of it, and really looking at other publishers, particularly in the healthcare space, but not always. I think things, for example, if the New York Times does something interesting with a content format, or the way they visually do something, that's inspiring to us. We look at, other thought leader. I follow tons of everything. I consume a a lot of information every day. I feel like it's a huge part of my responsibility to stay on top of things and, be inspired by people from, the Content Marketing Institute information or the Marketing AI Institute information, like those things to keep us trying new things, looking at new tools, making sure we're staying on top of it. But from a content inspiration perspective, I would say it's very much more of the media.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. All right. So a couple other ones here. What is a tool that you couldn't live without? So some sort of software or some sort of platform or something that you and your team couldn't live without to run this content engine.
Slack.
Yeah.
All day, every day, all night, every night, Slack.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Book or podcast. So content marketing or kind of engagement marketing, book or podcast that you would recommend or that you go back to regularly.
Right now, I'm obsessed with Paul Reitzer's Marketing AI Institute podcast. He covers like what you need to know right now in AI, which is impossible to do on your own.
That's awesome. Yeah, I haven't heard it. Say that again.
The Marketing AI Institute podcast, Paul Reitzer.
Got it. And the last one here, if you weren't leading content for Cleveland Clinic, not that you're going anywhere, but tell us, maybe it's a personal passion. It's just something you like. It's a brand that you're interested in. Where would you want to be creating content for?
Ooh, that's hard. I don't know that I could do it outside of healthcare, to be honest.
Okay.
I really love the space, the industry, the impact we make on people's lives with content. So it would.
You don't have to choose a competitor. It's fine. If it's healthcare, we'll just say healthcare. It's all good.
Definitely healthcare.
Maybe it would be like you'd like go lead like healthcare content at like a news media network or something like that.
I would definitely be up for that. But I like what I'm doing, and I am very passionate about the industry itself, and have been in it quite a while, and I don't see myself doing it.
Well, Amanda, we went deep today, and I so appreciate it. Congratulations on everything you guys have done and continue to do. And I know you get asked to do these a lot, so I just want to say thank you for joining us on Radical Content. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right, that's it, everybody. Radical Content, episode 5 in the books. We'll be back for more coming up soon. See ya. Thanks, everybody.